Hey, everybody. Hello, hello. Welcome. Happy Thursday. Here we are. I've got a great segment for you guys today. I'm so excited. And it is seriously one of my favorite things to talk about these days. And that is, we're going to talk about blood sugar regulation. But what I'm really excited about is to have my friend and colleague, Ashley Koff, here with us today from the Better Nutrition Program. Hey, Ashley, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's so good to see you always. Yes. Thank
Good.
you.
Yay.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. I'm so happy to have you. All right. So, guys, I'm Lesli Bitel. And again, really looking forward to spending some time with you today, talking about a topic that is near and dear to probably all of our hearts, right? Anyone in the field of nutrition or integrative functional medicine or nutrition for that matter. So, today we are going to zero in. We're going to talk to Ashley and we're going to be talking about 3 must-use tools for better blood sugar wins. And I've got my little blood sugar thing on, so I'm using the Libra. So I'm really super into this topic right now. All right, so we are going to delve into talking more about how you can manage this process in your practice, especially if you ever feel like you need/want at least 10 more hands and 5 more hours in a day, right? Which, hello, I think we can all relate to that. If you struggle to get patients to repeatedly invest in your services, that's another really big topic. And if you want to work better, not harder, you guys are definitely in the right place. So let's go ahead and jump in. Ashley, I would love it if you could first share a little bit about yourself and what you're doing these days.
Sure. So thank you. And it's always so much fun. I'm going to not share that much about myself. You can, at the Better Nutrition Program, you can grab my bio, but I want to dive into this. I think we've got some really fun things to talk about. But I will share that before becoming a dietitian, I worked in advertising and I created and sold sugared cereals. So my client was Kellogg's. We did a lot of that. And so this whole blood sugar piece really started off for me working legally and with the product development on things like Raisin Bran Crunch and Smart Start to be able to say things like provides you more energy. And it was just because we had more sugar in there than, other cereals, et cetera. And so today, when we talk about blood sugar, right, when we talk about blood sugar with individuals, gosh, there's such confusing information. And one of our colleagues, our mutual colleagues, Meg Moretta, who is just a genius in this area, she's been practicing, she worked with Lesli, she's been practicing for longer than I have. I think it's 3 decades at this point, but we both like to say 20 plus, at that point. She has helped me so much with her work with diabetics and type 1 diabetics primarily, but also type 2 diabetics, and looking at the continuous glucose monitor. So we are going to talk about that. But what I really want to talk about as it relates to blood sugar, and why I was talking about 3 specific tools for you from a win standpoint, is that today, there's so much misinformation about what actually healthy means and what data we can actually look at to help somebody understand and personalize recommendations. And at the very same time, these tools have been developed. They're also becoming available directly to consumers, which means that there are whole companies who have marketing budgets that are bigger than any of our revenues or certainly profits for the year. They have these huge marketing budgets where they're going direct to consumers and saying, you don't need your practitioner. You can just do what Lesli does, stick it on yourself and figure it out and go that route. And that's not better. And so one of the things that I want us to focus on today is what you, the practitioner, can do to compete in today's arena where all of these other solutions, are being offered out there. So when we talk about 3 tools, is it okay if we just jump into it instead of me? Okay, cool. On that part. And I was like, and I want to get to, I know you have questions. So I want to make sure we get those. When I talk about 3 tools, one of the most important things that we can do before we get into the actual tools is recognize that the win for us today is not education that tells people what they should know or tells people what they should do. What we need to be able to do is create behavior change. And the way that we create behavior change is being able to show people things. So the show, not the tell, instead of the show and the tell, the show, not the tell, or sometimes maybe the show and then a little tell is really what's going to make us more effective in our practice. And Leslie, when we were just jumping on, was sharing with me that she's got a practitioner that she works with who's like, I really want to do this, but this is a lot of work. And I'm going to get to the fact that this is a lot of work. So from a tool standpoint, we got to be able to show people. So data, things that collect data in real time, being able to show somebody, not a fasting blood glucose where they prick their finger and look at it, not a hemoglobin A1C. By the way, I just helped somebody who had a 5.1 who thought that he was so healthy. So his A1C is considered super, super healthy. His practitioner sent him in. He had horrific blood sugar spikes. Like he would go to 375 and stay there. Now, as Meg taught me, if you go to 375, 400 and you drop right back down, like if I eat straight up sugar and I pop up and drop back down, I'm healthy on that part. Like sugar is going to drive things up on that piece. But if we're staying up outside of our time and range and at a higher amount, that's not healthy. But yet for him, over a 3-month average, it wasn't staying up there high and for a long enough period of time to affect his A1C, but we were able to see what was going on, right? So we need things today. So number one, a tool like a continuous glucose monitor is going to be able to actually show someone specifically what is happening for them. Added on top, your blood sugar is not related to only your carbohydrate intake. The absence of carbohydrates, the intake of carbohydrates, the excess of carbohydrate, the quality of carbohydrate, yes, all a factor. However, what you also need is a tool that is going to show somebody how all of the different things that are going on in their life, their medications, their stress levels, their hormones, their digestion, their sleep. Like, so another tool to this is a tracker that's actually going to ask them questions about that so that they can see and so that you can know, hey, you know what's happening? My blood sugar is actually going down below 70 while I'm sleeping. Why is that happening? Does that matter? Right. So that's something that, that Leslie brought up. Mm-hmm. So that has to be added on. And I will tell you right now, one of the only reasons we created our continuous glucose monitor program is because that's not happening with those other programs. That's what you, the practitioner, can actually be doing, within that space. Mm-hmm. And then the additional tool is you have to then be able to have tools that help you. So it's a little bit of a package of a toolkit, if you will, but that actually helps you move from, okay, this is the information that I gathered, and now I'm going to help you make recommendations. I'm going to help you with recommendations, and we can experiment and see what's going on. So for example, one of the things that we may actually be looking at is, hey, if my blood sugar, if I'm out of range, and we start to look at my carbohydrate intake, or maybe on my stress check-ins, I'm super stressed out, maybe I actually would benefit from getting in more magnesium. Well, before I just decide to take a magnesium supplement, why don't I evaluate my overall magnesium intake from foods as well as from supplements, and maybe see if there's any other supplements or things that I'm taking that are conflicting with it. And now I can strategize a plan to see if now, while I'm wearing my continuous glucose monitor, if I get in a better amount of magnesium, does it actually improve my time in range, right? So you want tools that you can then be effective with based on the data that you've gathered from that blood sugar standpoint. And so that is actually an introduction to what we do at the Better Nutrition Program. So we've put this all together for you, the practitioner, because myself and Meg, we recognized not only is this not easy to implement as a practitioner, I want to be really clear on that part, and we're going to get into some of the challenges, but the second part of it is we need to do all of that. Otherwise, we're not going to compete favorably against what's out there from a direct-to-consumer standpoint. So that's my introduction. That's what we're doing. Hopefully you're excited on that part. And let me just turn it over to you for a second if you have a question or anything on that part.
Yeah, so I have so many questions. I mean, I really want to dig into what your tool looks like inside of the Better Nutrition Program. But I guess before we segue into those specifics, where should we start? Like what patients? Because one of the questions I get whenever I bring up this topic that I'm kind of passionate about now is, well, Leslie, that sounds great, but does it really help people that are not like on the brink of type 2 diabetes?
Super,
Right?
super important. So there are, just if you wanted to focus on like, ooh, is there an audience for me? There are 96 million Americans, supposedly, like what I say by supposedly is we actually know there's more, who are pre-diabetic. And whether they know that or not, they're pre-diabetic using their A1C as a diagnosis on that part. So that's not even what we talk about with, time and range in that piece. So as somebody who's looking to build your business, to identify patients, to identify, being able to help people. But the additional part is blood sugar, like digestion, is implicated in absolutely everything. If we have too crowded of highways, we know that, and blood sugar isn't going where it's supposed to go. We know that that's a risk for us from from a heart health standpoint. We know it's a risk for us with, just all the tiny little capillaries. So eye health, kidney health, all of these other things. And waiting for somebody to be pre-diabetic or diabetic is way too long on that part.
Yeah.
The other thing that we know is that blood sugar is related to aging. So if I am somebody who cares about, if I am talking to you from a vanity standpoint about like my skin, or if I'm talking to you about cognitive function and I'm worried that I'm going to be like my parents, and my parents, I'm saying hypothetically, but my parents, where they have cognitive decline or any of these pieces, super important. Blood sugar is implicated in not just healthy and in healthy pregnancy, but also very important for fertility. And as we know from our brilliant colleagues like Ayla Barmer, it's really implicated in the male and the female when we talk about fertility, in that space. So the health of the sperm, from the standpoint of fertility for the woman. So that is going to be important. So they're really actually, it's pretty foundational in the way, like over time, I think one of the things that I think back to, like in the 20 years that I've been in practice, like I was so ahead of my time, but I was always right on it with digestion. And that's because I had digestive issues. That's what led me into doing this. And we know that like, there's no one that you wouldn't talk to about digestion. And that's like, when I first became a practitioner, I didn't want to be pigeonholed. I wrote books on and did interviews, and everybody's like, oh, you're that digestive health expert. I'm like, I can do everything. Today, I would be like, if you're working with a nutritionist who's not focused on your digestion, move along. Like, let's, find somebody else on that part, because we know that you can't have better health without better digestion. Well, you can't have better health without better blood sugar. And blood sugar optimization, like digestive health, is something that we have to always come in and check in on. So it's related to our immune function. One of the things that we do at the Better Nutrition Program is we collaborate with Big Bold Health, with Jeff Bland's company. And he's really, taken us down this new path of, it's called immunorejuvenation and immune balance, instead of immune boosting, and really understanding what impacts immune health in the body. And it's blood sugar. It's blood sugar and it's digestion, it's your microbiome, et cetera. So Lesli and I get pretty worked up about this because this is foundational for everyone on that part. The other thing is, this does not have to be something that you have to have go in and get, a significant amount of differential training on, or, really doesn't have to be that multifactorial, as long as you know what you're evaluating and then can start to work with individuals on that piece. Yeah.
I love that. So let's segue into what's new, like new ways to look at blood sugar optimization.
Yeah.
Right. And I would like to preface this segment just by kind of throwing out an observation or feedback that I get. Right. Again, I'm excited about it. I've got my monitor on. Right. So I'm going deep down this path. So whenever I bring it up to practitioners, not always, but quite often, they're like, well, wait a second, it's fine. Like, it really doesn't matter how high your sugar goes. As long as it comes back down, you're fine. Right? So, but there's a new way of thinking now, right?
There is.
About
yeah, and I'm careful with it, because I think we've gone, one of the reasons I think practitioners, and it depends certainly what type of practitioner, but practitioners can be a little bit hesitant, like, oh gosh, where are we going with this? Is that there are whole classes of practitioners and biohackers and individuals out there that literally don't want their blood sugar to like even hit 70 or 80 these days. Like they're like, I just want to be so low. I want my body to be, using ketones and be in ketosis, and I never want to see blood sugar bump up, et cetera. So the way I like to think about it is, remember the old days when before statin drugs were like, available for everyone.
Yeah.
And when we were looking at cholesterol, we would say, okay, your LDL could be like 120, and that was considered healthy, and so if it was above that, we really want to, work on diet and lifestyle and, things on that piece. And then statin drugs came on the market and it was like, okay, now 100, now 90, now 70. And I would be seeing my patients who were like going lower and lower, especially the men, also then having erectile dysfunction and needing ED drugs because testosterone, or these kinds of things were, and we were suppressing things. So what we have to remember is there's a normal arc to blood sugar. We're not saying like that we want to suppress everyone. The goal isn't to have sustained low blood sugar, and low blood sugar is as problematic for the body as elevated blood sugar. But this time and range concept is really about understanding and optimizing your range. And your range is going to be different based on your lifestyle. So I have some athletes who they get pretty high levels of their blood sugar can be pretty high, and especially during season, some of these things. And so we like their range may be different when they're in season. It doesn't mean I'm going to accept high blood sugar. It just means that I'm going to look at, based on performance, intensity, because it's stress, it's sleeping, not well, these kinds of things. How do we really optimize that for them? And that might be very different, than off season. Alcohol is also a factor, so we can dive into those pieces.
Yeah.
But so that's important. And so what we really want people to understand this time and range. Now, something else I think is key is, some people are suggesting, and some companies really want you to do this. So the marketing is out there, like it's really like to wear a continuous glucose monitor all the time. I don't believe in that. This is a tool. This is like testing your vitamin D level, or this is like assessing your maybe once a quarter, deciding to do a digestive tune-up and like, hey, how's my digestion? And then do I need a tune-up? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But it's not something that we need to be using all the time. That said, what we can and absolutely should do, in my opinion, is, depending on the individual, is if we have them wear it and we use it to data collect and to do some experiments while they're wearing it, and then work on some things, and this goes to that client retention, and then come back and see how we've done, that's really going to be very helpful in that way. And we can use it in that capacity. But my diabetics, and there are certain people where maybe there's a rationale for them to be, wearing it for a more sustained period of time. If I'm working with somebody on their hormones, or, fertility, or, some of these other things. But most of the time we can gather a lot of data in 14 days of wearing one, and then revisit that at a later point. So we don't, just because something is a tool that's available. It was like somebody said to me the other day with Prolon, how they, like, some people will do Prolon fasting, where it's like you do it once maybe you might do it once a month for 3 months in the beginning, but then you might do it, maybe some people do it once a quarter, or they do it twice a year. But now, Prolon has this like 1 day fasting, or you can do it. And they're a business. So they're like, you should be doing it all the time. And we're like, hold on a second. Right. So we don't want to go too extreme in that capacity, and serving it up. But we do want to really look at, hey, how can I use this tool? Yeah.
Okay. So any recommendations for that area?
For that range? Yeah. So This is really important to know. Okay. So keep in mind that, unfortunately, in the United States, this is not the case in other parts of the world, but in the United States, we still are looking at continuous glucose monitors only being recommended for people with diabetes. That's what insurance reimburses, and that states. So because of that, the CGMs are set for a range of like 70 to 160 or even 180. That's for a diabetic, and it's being used for that purposes. So if you put your patient on a CGM and you're in like LibreView in the app, and they're saying like, whoa, look at this range, I'm doing great. And you're like, that's not the range I want for you, because for a diabetic, we may want somebody like who's completely out of that range, or not spending, at least 50% of the time in range. We may need to use that range and improve upon it. For somebody who is a person without diabetes, and notice I'm not saying healthy, but somebody who is a person without diabetes, or a person who's not pre-diabetic, we may want to customize those ranges. And I look at that, a lot of the starting point for that as a practitioner is very much like the way that you would use like steps. So 10,000 steps in a day, like, all right, there's some rationale for why we came up with that. It's a few good miles and, hey, here, we can do that piece. So we could look at a range, people have said 80 to 120 or, and that kind of thing. But if you start wearing your continuous glucose monitor and we actually see that your range is like maybe you're 70 to 90 and we want to see, okay, what percentage of the time are you in 70 to 90? So what we're really going to look at is, are there any times that you're sustained outside of that? So we personalize your time in range, like what your window is going to look like based on who you are today. And ladies, I will definitely tell you, there is a huge range shift typically the week before you get your period. Not huge, but a dramatic shift, right, on that part. And many of us are like, oh yeah, because I need carbs. But also remember, your body is contracting. That's why I need like all the magnesium in the world, on those pieces, or your sleep might be affected. And there are other time periods, where if there's a high degree of stress, or if if you've done travel and you've gone through several time zones and your sleep is affected. So there can be things that change that. And so depending on when you're wearing it, we will look at that. And that's one of the reasons that, because these answers aren't if this, then that, one of the reasons, again, why we created a program and built a clinical team around this of individuals who know this information and can easily help the practitioner, is we wanted to be available to offer this to you without you having to do this specifically, right? And then the coach can come in and then execute against that, with your patient and gather data. But I wouldn't say it's one size fits all in terms of a range on that piece. So for you, where you were bringing up like your blood sugar goes, there are some nights where your blood sugar goes low.
Yeah.
So I personally might also like layer it with an Oura ring and look at your HRV and just kind of see like, hey, am I getting deep sleep? Am I getting REM? Am I waking up in the middle of the night? One of the things I'd be suspicious about is hydration. So a lot of times we think it's food and we're not adequately hydrated going to bed. It could be alcohol or not the earlier in the night. It could also be maybe you actually like took a walk or, whatever, or dinner was just a little salty, whatever it is on those pieces. So I know for me, I will take hot baths with magnesium salts, like Epsom salt baths or things like that. And on the one hand, I love what it does. It's so great from a relaxation standpoint, but I also noticed that I can actually, because of that, I can actually trend lower. So there are things that we can look at that are completely not food related, as well as things that are, food and hydration on that piece as well.
Okay. So
yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, it's fun to dive into the data. So for example, I just want to brag for a second because I love, and it's not for myself, it's because this clinical team that's, that Meg is overseeing for us has just been incredible. One of the things, we had a practitioner who sent a patient over who's insulin resistant. Her BMI is 18, not that I care that much about BMI, athlete, very high performer, et cetera. And she also has, not from diabetes, but she, from a genetic standpoint, has chronic kidney disease. So she sent over and she's like, I cannot figure out her insulin resistance. Let's put a CGM. We talked about it. I'm like, we'll have her read the CGM. We'll help you figure that out, or, give you some insights, based on her performance. So I'll tell you, she's like in there for like a day and a half. And Meg turns around to me and she's like, has the practitioner run a ferritin? Because when you have CKD and you have this, your iron stores are often implicated in, and the practitioner just like had never that wasn't like, all of those factors together weren't on her radar. And so we've been able to work on that. At the same time, we also identified, a couple of other factors. And I mentioned the gentleman to you. And then we had another person go through who is vegan. And she was like, look, I knew you were going to tell me those tapioca ball drinks. And, I eat too many carbohydrates at one time, but I'm trying to meet my protein needs. And, she's like, I knew it was going to be all related to carbohydrates. She's like, wow, what did I have a rude awakening? She's like, literally, I saw after my phone calls that I was on for this one particular client, how much higher my blood sugar, and it stayed up. She's like, the degree to which stress was impacting me. Yes, I needed some better nutrient balance, and we did some shift with her food. But she actually had to work on, and she worked on with her coach, things like breathing while she was on the call, getting up and walking after, sometimes, the timing of her eating as it related to working with this client. And because she knows it's a really stressful situation. And that was super insightful. So again, these are the things that keep, when Leslie was talking about it before, and so I love teaming up with her, these are the things that keep the clients coming back. If I can give you this data about you, like, let me tell you, wearing a Levels or a NutriSense where somebody's like, oh, eat cauliflower instead of banana, like, that's not the answer. Like, yes, you can eat banana. Yes, you can have cauliflower. But let's certainly figure out who you are today and how the cauliflower and the banana and all these other great foods are going to work, for your body, as well as, your, everything else that's going on life-wise. Yeah, so it's exciting.
Nutrition,
extraordinary. It is. It really is at that level. And one of the ones that is a real kicker. So we do this because we have a sweet taste bud reset. So I have a fun test that I like people to do. They bite into the apple and how sweet is it? And we go through and it's like, do your sweet taste buds need a reset? Because I got really tired of people just getting rid of sugar. You know what happens when they get rid of sugar? They're having allulose, stevia, monk fruit, like all of these things. And a lot of them are bumping your sweet taste buds up even higher, right? Or when we get rid of sugar, they were like eating all like tons of fat, tons of protein. Extra fat, extra protein also drives up your blood sugar. So we've put a CGM on people who are doing keto and doing high amounts or carnivore. And they're like, there's no way my blood sugar could be elevated. And we're like, oh, check this out. Like, and especially after your exercise, and showed them that. But one of the really interesting things is, and seeing is believing. It's like the Heinz 57 commercial, is when you actually see that having those non-nutritive sweeteners, having the diet soda, having the, deciding to do the fake version of, something and trying to cheat on that part, how that's affecting your blood sugar, as well as I can chat about how it affects your microbiome. I now give you data that you're more willing to use. And so, a lot of times clients get frustrated with us because they feel like we're just telling them something in this very like, well, this is just what's better for you, or this is how you would feel better, and they're like, but if you can actually, it's like a 7-year-old. If you can show someone and be like, here is what, here is how you do this. This is what this means for your body. It's like, oh, now I can actually see what happens. And that's one of the reasons why for us with wearing a continuous glucose monitor, we do want you for a couple of days to just do what you would be doing. But then we actually go in and personalize with you and with your coach. We actually have you try some experiments. So I want to see for you, what is it going to be like if you actually went to bed an hour earlier? I want to see, like, for you, Leslie, what would it be like? Maybe we try a hydration, maybe we have you do some avocado, or we have you do like something that's got like some more potassium and water, or maybe we try a hydration supplement, whatever it is, but we do something like that before bed and we try it for 3 nights in a row, and we see, does that actually change things? Is there something, based on, do we have you try a night where you have alcohol, try a night where you don't have alcohol, any of these pieces? Then we're actually able to say to them, do that. For me personally, the one that it was so, I didn't want, like, when you're like, I actually don't want this data. So when I'm fitting in a workout and I'm getting to go for a run, or I'm getting, I'm doing my HIIT workout with Adrian on Peloton and I feel like I'm a champ, and, I was like, whatever, my head, I have this vision of who I am and what I'm doing. I usually will fit that in like down to, and you've seen me like this, like down to like, okay, I'm just going to stop, drink the water, have a bite to eat, throw on a baseball cap, and I'll go live. Like, I do not build in the time for recovery. Well, when I saw what happened to my blood sugar in wearing the CGM without recovery, when I went from hitting it hard, run, whatever it was, to not doing anything else, versus when I stopped a little bit earlier and I did a 5 to 10 minute cool down on that part, the difference of how quickly my blood sugar returned back down was phenomenal. And why is that important? Because we have a lot of people who actually stay they're hungry right after they work out, or they get really hungry 2 hours after they work out. Depending on what they choose to eat at that point, that can also keep them at this highly elevated out of their time in range. And you suddenly start to see, a pattern there that is actually impacting how their body builds muscle and also how their body recovers, right? So important on that part. If anybody has any, if you've got any, anyone that you're working with that, is doing any of these, training for any of these athletic pursuits or things like that, really, really valuable insights, for you to be able to share on that part. Yeah.
So good. Yeah, we got a comment here. It's the key when people see it. Totally agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And what you need to do, and for the person who mentioned that, thank you, medical system, we look at it so different, and that we cannot wait for them to catch up on that part, primarily because we know we can help people, but also if we wait, we're going to lose all the people that are going direct to consumer. So here's one of the things I want to challenge you, and you guys, Leslie's programs are so good, and I know she can help you in this way. When you're doing your marketing, when you're doing your emails, when you're doing your marketing, I need you to remember what I just shared with you. You are not competing against another dietitian who's using a continuous glucose monitor program, or a doctor, or anything else like that. You are competing against Levels, or against NutriSense, or against, somebody who's offering a program out there, or selling supplements, or, that kind of thing, direct to consumer. So because of that, in your marketing, you need to actually explain to people. You need to explain to people that it's just as problematic to wear a continuous glucose monitor and just try to eat your way to better blood sugar. That isn't actually the answer. And that is what's being served up. And it's creating really restrictive, non-nutrient dense eating. Like, I have people that, not only are they getting rid of their carbohydrates, they are getting rid of their trace minerals, which, by the way, also help with your blood sugar. They are getting rid, they're reducing their fiber intake, which, by the way, feeds your microbiome, which, by the way, as we know, helps cognitive function, which, by the way, we know helps mental health. So we are screwing people up, not we collectively, society is screwing people up if we're giving them these continuous glucose monitors and saying to people, oh, let's just optimize your blood sugar. It's the same way as if you went into a doctor who didn't use that and they said, oh, you've got diabetes, you need to watch your sugars, right? Which was, we know, was like the most unhelpful information, and that's been presented. Yeah. So please, from a marketing standpoint, get bold, get clear, and talk about, the answer isn't actually banana or cauliflower. Cool part, they both are white. They both have potassium. One certainly provides a lot more sugar than the other. Benefits, and if you don't want to have a banana, I have no issues on that part, but you better get in your fiber, and you better like the taste of what you're eating, because if you're avoiding sugar all day and then you hit the sugar wall and you hit it hard in the late afternoon or evening because you're also tired, that's a train wreck for you from a digestive standpoint, from a sleep standpoint, from a blood sugar standpoint. So we can do so much more work when we're able to truly personalize it like this, which is not the same as wearing it and just giving people suggestions on that part.
Exactly. Yeah. So what I really want to do is try to nail down what patient types are. I understand it's pretty much everybody.
Yeah, but you want me to be specific.
I do. I want to go a little deeper.
So let's start. Yeah. Let's hit the big one.
And you're wondering, gosh, how does this fit in? And will my client or patient be motivated?
Totally. Yeah.
What kind of patients?
So first of all, the kind of patient that is maybe less compliant is going to be a great patient. Okay. And I will also say somebody who likes to see data, that is going to be more helpful. Right now, somebody who sees data and is just not going to make a shift, there's no reason on that part. But somebody who seeing data is actually going to help them. Mm-hmm. Anyone with an autoimmune disease, that's going to be really important. Okay. Because when we look at an autoimmune disease and the body is attacking itself, we know that inflammation, and we know that when our time is out of range, unhealthy blood sugar fluctuations is an exacerbator there. The other part of it is many of the medications, things like steroids, et cetera, can also be ones that really challenge optimal blood sugar, so there is that piece, right? So I like looking at that. Metabolic syndrome overall. So we're talking about, heart disease, sort of that trifecta where we're looking, unfortunately, where we look at heart disease and also we're looking at, from a, oh my God, my brain just blocked on, but really looking at optimizing blood sugar, and seeing in that part. So that piece is going to be really key. And when I said autoimmune disease, and I was talking about inflammation, if somebody has elevated SED rate, CRP, and we're seeing more of an inflammatory challenge, to me, that's also a really great area. Now, if you have a patient who has digestive health issues, and if you're working on their digestive health, I probably wouldn't do the continuous glucose monitor until they'd made an appreciable difference. And here's the reason why. We know that your digestion, the inability to absorb things properly and have them go where they're supposed to go, is going to affect your blood sugar. So there might be a reason to do that, but in most instances, I would work on, I might spend 6 weeks, I might spend 3 months on digestion, and let them know at that point, we really want to see what's going on with blood sugar, be able to go that route. So you could see that would be really key. Some of the ones that I think are really interesting, those of you who are practicing with nutrigenomics. So if you're looking at, and you're looking at methylation, you're looking at inflammation, you're looking at, certainly things like with 3x4, how it shows how your body, even metabolically, like your metabolic flame, where mine's like this tiny little flicker that's like, you should be a sumo wrestler. And I'm like, no, right? It's like how intensely we're going to work out, in that piece. Nutrigenomics and blood sugar go really well together, because nutrigenomics tells you about the potential of the individual, right? The inefficiencies, the efficiencies of that individual. But the continuous glucose monitor is going to tell you about in the present today, how are your genes actually expressing themselves? So that's going to give you something where you could actually, to work on that part. I mentioned some of the other areas, certainly fertility. I think that's a really important one. Now, here's where I'm going to go, and sometimes this might feel unpopular. I'm just going to, and I'm fine with that. However, so weight is an unpopular conversation. I believe that you, the practitioner working with your patient, are determining what the patient's health goals are. If the patient's health goals are related to their body composition, and that is something that you are working on with them, then blood sugar can be very helpful in that, to understand if there's an indication of highs or lows, maybe being a factor. And oftentimes I will find that, especially I've worked with a lot of perimenopausal women, and a lot of times people just need a hug, and the hug is, hey, our body's working differently now based on from a hormone standpoint. So I will often, while I'm waiting on the results of a Dutch test, or while I'm waiting for that time of the month where they can actually do their Dutch test, I will actually go ahead and do the continuous glucose monitor for 14 days and be able to have better overall, data on that part. So I could go on performance for athletes and, speakers and, people who are dealing with fatigue, definitely things like chronic fatigue and some of those other factors, because your sleep is so that's so indicative, like what's happening. It's very chicken and egg with your blood sugar and your sleep on that part as well. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of opportunity
So
there.
that's great. So, so people that are in the weight management market, right?
Right.
They're probably helping their clients or patients achieve other goals. But I think what I heard you say is body composition. So like the midsection body weight that.
Yeah. And I use it for people too, who I have a lot of clients for different reasons, from disease and ulcerative colitis flare-ups, and Crohn's, et cetera, where they're really struggling to put on or keep lean body mass. And one of the things that I don't like is this recommendation to just get in all calories. And so I can actually start to understand efficiencies and inefficiencies. And as we add as we have you increase your intake, I want to make sure that we're not pushing your body too far out of range, because that actually would be helping you on one side and not helping you on the other. So I think that there's a lot that we can do in that way. Yeah.
All right. That's great. Let's talk a little bit about how you help practitioners.
Sure.
And specifically, I think this is all about working smarter versus harder, which who doesn't want that, right, Ashley?
Right, exactly. And look, I did that because there were a lot less of us at the time and I was super successful in Los Angeles. And so, when you're really successful, everybody calls, and you can't say yes to one celebrity and not say yes to another, but then you better be able to say yes to their publicist and their age, and everybody else. And it was like, how do I scale some of these things? Right. And so for me, tools that allow me to scale are also ones that allow me to show up for my practice and to be the practitioner that gets excited about working with the individual, because I'm not answering the same questions all the time. And I have the data that I need really efficiently. And so to me, that's what I mean for better. Like, I do not want to be like still working on my notes at midnight, or having to answer patient emails on the weekend. And I also don't want to not be getting to those emails or kind of be a little bit pissy when I'm responding. And I'm like, I told you this 4 times, like, why do you need it a 5th? They needed a 5th. like, that's the answer. Like, it doesn't matter how many times I told you, for it to crack into somebody's head or for them to experience it, they need it to line up, and I need that magic to happen. So what I realized early on was I needed help. So I trained this army. Today they're coaches. At the time I was starting my practice, I had a lot of assistants. And it was people who were much better than me at helping with the implementation of, helping people. They knew my recommendations. They knew what I wanted to be to do for the person. They also knew what information would be helpful for me to know so that I could customize recommendations, because I'm not going to nail it every time. Like, anytime we make a recommendation for somebody, it's based on informed, evidence-based, practice-based. We then need to see how it actually works in the individual, and then see if our supposition was correct, and move it forward. And also if the person's going to implement it. All that stuff costs time and money of us, and it leads towards burnout if we're doing that part. So one of the things that we did at the Better Nutrition Program was I found an army, and it's a growing army of coaches that are trained. They're board certified, many of them from Functional Medicine Coaching Academy. And they come in, and then we oversee them, because I'm also not letting a coach go out of their scope of practice. You're there for a very specific reason. You do things really well and differently than me, but you're not me. Like, you're not a dietitian, or you're not a doctor, et cetera. If you're a dietitian and a coach, you're going to be working in your coaching, capacity. So we've got that part. And then what I ended up with our tools, I wanted to do was I wanted to find a way to be able to show my patients everything, why I'm asking all of these different questions. I wanted them to understand that there are all of these different things about sugar or magnesium or whatever. It's a lot of questions. So let's ask all this so you understand all the different things that could be factored in, like your supplements, your bath products, your skincare products, and your food choices, et cetera. And so we created tools that, that help people assess those. And then with this continuous glucose monitor thing, I'm like you. I went in, I did a bunch of them. I even had a quote unquote coach who just kept telling me it was my food. And I was like, you realize I just told you I was fasting, and I was wondering what the implications of infrared sauna, no joke. And I was like, okay, I'm done with this kind of messaging. And so I was like, we've got to have something that's better there. And I turned to Meg, and I was like, Meg, you've been doing this for so long, and some of her colleagues, what could we create that would be so much more useful for practitioners, that would really celebrate the practitioner and help, optimize for the patient? And so we created it's about 17 days long. It's app-based. It's the continuous glucose monitor program. And when you sign a patient up for it, we help you have them get the CGM. If you can script for it, great. If not, we help them get a prescription. We have a code where they can get a free sensor so that they can trial that. So at least one sensor is going to be free. Subsequent ones are like $40 to $60. And we have a program in an app where they get to watch some videos to hear about some of this stuff. But the highest value things are they answer the questions, and they have a coach helping them track and prioritize information over the course of 14 days, during which time we're reviewing the tracing. So our clinical team is looking at that. As they're doing experiments, we're giving real-time feedback. We might come back to you, the practitioner, and say, hey, we thought about this. What do you think? Would you be okay if we, so we're coming back and integrating with you. And at the end, we create a report for you with the tracings. We give you that, and you're now able to go back, and we say, like, here's where we would recommend going. We can go there together with other resources that we have, or you can now go off and, look at it for this with your patient, et cetera. And so we have dietitians like Amanda Archibald's are, referring us, and we have other coaches that have referred in. We have doctors that are loving referring this in, because at the end of the day, I will tell you this: there are a ton of questions, like, where on my arm can I put it? What if I shower? And we have all of those, by the way, in our FAQs. Let me tell you, doesn't matter what's in your FAQs. Someone in the moment is going to be like, oh my gosh, what about, and what happens if it falls off? Well, on which day did it fall off? And how do I source a new one? And all of that stuff, that every time you have to answer one of those questions, you need to be deducting money from your bank account, if you're doing this on your own. And instead, we're doing that. And we allow you to, just like FullScript, you can buy it at wholesale from us and extend that price to your patient. Or there's a 30% differential. So you could make 15% off of it, or you could make 30% off of it and not give them a discount on that part. It's normally $3.99. Right now it's $2.99. There's $100 off this month. And if anyone buys it, and depending whenever they're watching it, but at any point, if they buy it, either through you can sell it to them as part of, like, if you want to design a big package, like one of Leslie's like signature packages, you can do that, and they can purchase it directly from you, and we never, exchange dollars with BNP, or you can send them to our website, use your code, and they can purchase there. And in either of those instances, let's say that they bought it today and they're like, yeah, but I don't want to do this through Thanksgiving. Then we just say, okay, I'd like my start date to be, the 28th of November, whatever. Although I think it'd be super interesting to do it through Thanksgiving, on that part. So anyway, so what we've done in that part is think of us like the customer service solution that you want for your business, but also you want the customer service to happen with a nutrition partner that you can trust, not to come up with things. We are not telling patients what to do. We're not prescribing supplements or doing anything else like that. But this did happen the other day. We were able with a continuous glucose monitor to show the practitioner the negative implications of the supplement, the way that she had recommended that the amount of supplements at lunchtime in particular with this person's lunch was just not working. And then also the protein shake that she had recommended. And so we just went back to her and we're like, hey, here's how we would change it. Can we try it while she's wearing the CGM? Can we try that for 3 days? Changed it. And the practitioner was like, that's so much better. And I had no idea. And you just need somebody. So it's not just customer service. It's like nutrition brain informed customer service that's going to help you. And then our coaches are there to give support and only support. We oversee everything that they do. I will not have a coach that's going outside of scope of practice. So that part to me is also, helpful. And we do it in English and Spanish, and, just have different cultural sensitivities so that we're also able to, we had somebody who last year in Ramadan, we were beta testing this, and had somebody going through, and we're like, let's look at what happens to blood sugar during Ramadan. And it was really helpful for that individual, so there's a lot that we can do for sure.
Incredible. So how do we find out more about this? Where would you want people to go as a next step?
Yeah. So if you want a code, you don't need a code. If you want a code because you want to be able to provide a discount or any of these things, then yes, you can actually do that. And I will answer that. You can go to the betternutritionprogram.com right now. And you can go to it says buy a program. You go on there, you go to the CGM program and you purchase it and you get it for $2.99. If you already have your CGM, we can get going. It's a 17-day program because we don't have you put your CGM on the first day. If you've already got it on, we can accommodate that, but we usually have a little bit on that piece. If you want a code, then I recommend if you can email programs@thebetternutritionprogram.com, or you can go to our website and you can just chat us and say, I met you guys through Leslie. I just want to get a code, or I want to get multiple codes so that I can offer this, and we'll get you set up with that. And then you can give those codes to your audience on that piece. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Everyone clear on that?
Super.
All right.
Did I answer all your personal questions? Because part of the promise was to come in here and help you, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What can I eat for breakfast? I'm a dietitian and I'm like,
what do you like for breakfast? And when are you having breakfast? Yes, exactly. When are you breaking your fast? Yeah.
Yeah. I really like my 2 pieces of gluten-free toast with almond butter and jelly, but it's not working out so well.
You're seeing that. So that's an interesting, and do you have coffee before it or no?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you, so you have coffee and do you have water as well, or just the coffee?
Yeah, more coffee than water.
And do you take supplements too?
Not in the morning.
Okay. And your coffee is black, or does it have stuff in it?
Cream.
A little cream in it? Okay. And do you exercise or do you not exercise?
I do, but after I eat.
After you eat? Yeah. And are you sleeping well? Do you feel like you wake up and you're feeling good on sleep on that part? Okay. So when you say it's not working well for you, is it your blood sugar obviously would be going up. And is it dropping down or is it staying up?
I get a spike and then a crash.
Yeah. A crash low, or does it crash back into range?
70.
Yeah, you're totally, so here's the thing, you're totally fine. Your caffeine and the bread and the jelly is all doing it on that part, right? So, however, if that amount of nutrition is helping, and that caffeine is powering you through your workout, and you're saying like, okay, on that part, and we don't need to get into this here, but my sed rate CRP is good, my, like my other, like all of the other things on that part, I'm not, I mean, we can always ask Meg. I personally wouldn't be concerned for you. You're not actually presenting me with a problem. What you actually told me is, I love everything about this, and your body, and this is really important. Yes, your body knows you're having jelly and gluten-free bread, which is, it potentially less fibrous, or, so one option, you've got your almond butter. Do you want to sprinkle some hemp seeds on there too? But if it suddenly starts to not taste great, like, to me, that's not such a win. Now, I would like you to have water. Like, so I do think that you could have water on that part. And I would be careful if you're exercising to make sure that then that your blood sugar comes down, and I don't want it tanking. I don't want it going too low. But I don't want it also staying up, if you're exercising right after.
Yeah.
I think honestly, the answer is you're pretty healthy, and this is good. So let's not, if it's what you like, let's not change it. Now, you would be something that could be interesting for you is you could try making an almond butter overnight oats. I'm just going to like on that part, right? So you could do almond milk or, whatever. And so like maybe a third of a cup of oats in that part, maybe put some chopped up almonds. And now maybe you try some raspberries or some strawberries in there. You don't have the jelly, but I would still put the almond butter, because that's going to give it creamy, delicious texture. Okay. Go ahead and try that and see if you feel as happy about it taste-wise. And do you also feel happy about it performance-wise? Okay. And does that give you something to alter? Because one of the things that I love about that is it's now giving you prebiotic fibers that are also, so like there's benefit for you from a digestive standpoint. And so if we don't do the exact same breakfast every single day, and I can shift it and I still get some good results, I'm fine on that part. But yeah, I really don't, I think there's no problem in there, on that piece. Awesome. Yeah. And just don't post it on social media, or you're going to get a lot of people who are like, I can't believe she's a dietitian and that's what she eats. It's like, yeah, thanks, but you'll be fine. Yeah.
Human, right?
Right. Totally. And human and doing totally right by your body. That's the part where I'm like, I'm sorry, who are you to tell me what actually, like, it's one thing to just judge something based on like, oh, there's sugar in that. You're like, there is. And you know what? My body is totally good with it. That kind of thing. Yeah.
I use good jelly. That's
I mean, right? Like, of course. Yeah. Right. It is. I mean, at the end of the day, I really think that that's like one of, I think, our collective goals, whether you're a dietitian, whether you're a chiropractor, whether you're a doctor, et cetera, is we are trying to help you. The goal of personalization is to have it hit the wins of better for your body today. Yeah. And at the same time, that better includes, it's got to be delicious to you, right? Or at least delicious enough for you to be like, okay, this is better for me on that piece. So I think we really want to help people avoid all the dramas that are out there. Could an elevation be a morning cortisol spike? Oh, yes. But however, there are so many things that an elevation can be. So that is one of the things that Meg has really taught me, and gathering data from our clinical team. That's something that we unpack a lot. So we look at your sleep, we look at your digestion, we look at your alcohol, we look at your hydration. And I think we've become really comfortable as we've gotten to know and understand cortisol. It's like, it was kind of like when we got to know probiotics and the microbiome, and we're like, oh my gosh, on that part. And so I think a lot of things are being attributed to cortisol on that piece. And while it absolutely could be a factor, I would not want to say yay or nay until I unpack to you personally. And that is part of, what gathering the data can do for us. Yeah.
I love that.
Great question, though. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just so many variables.
Yes. Yeah. And anyone that tries to oversimplify it is not doing better for you. And that is, please take that to your marketing. Take it to your marketing and help people understand that there is a difference. I understand, like, the reason the dietary guidelines in the United States are really unhelpful is because they tried to make them helpful to everyone. So massive oversimplification, right? The reason so many diet trends are just so ridiculous is because they're an oversimplification. Like, oh, this is how this works, or this is what's going to be good for everyone on that part. Mm-hmm. So we want people to know is, I'm sorry that it's not simple. There isn't like this one size fits all answer. However, there is a very doable way, non-invasive, a very doable way for me to gather data about you in partnership with you for us to actually start to figure out what your body needs and how you choose to deliver it. So it does put you in the driver's seat. And that is this is a tool that I can, that working with you, if I'm the practitioner saying this. So those are the lives to do. Those are the things to, to share about. Those are the things to post in your emails, et cetera, to differentiate and say, hey, if you're hearing about this, it's really worthy. By the way, also, you all should try to come if you can. I've got a webinar later on in December. It's on our,
about that.
Yeah, it's on our workshops. So I'm very interested in, obviously, the role of digestive health and blood sugar on that part, and Akkermansia as this one probiotic that has been developed. It's, is really interesting for blood glucose. And we've had people have said, like, oh my gosh, my mom was on it for 2 months and her hemoglobin A1C like didn't change anything else, and these kinds of things. So I actually asked my colleague, Dr. Spar, who's super smart guy, and very interested in performance and personalization. So he and I are teaming up in a discussion about this and really looking at this new era of optimization. So we're going to geek out on the research. So if you want to know more about that part, please come to that session that Pendulum is hosting. They're the makers of the glucose response product, but it's really like they're hosting as an education, on that piece. And my colleague, Tom Blue, is also going to talk about bundled programs, how you could put this all together, which is your big push, Leslie, in terms of how do I create this and offer it that way. So I think that's like there definitely is more to this from a science standpoint. And we're just trying to stay ahead of the curve and get to know it as it comes about on that part for sure.
Great. All right. Any final words of wisdom that you want to share as we start to wrap up?
I think the fun part for me is that I encourage any of you yourselves to, if you haven't done, to do what Leslie is doing, do that. We'd love to have you come through our program. So you're not guessing yourself, on that piece. But one of the reasons is to see how your day, like this individual was, how different things that stress you out in your day, whether it's, dealing with the finances of the business or the patient calls or running from session to session and forgetting to save time for the bathroom or any of these other things, how that impacts your blood sugar. And I think that when we have that data, it actually helps us as practitioners construct healthier days for ourselves, which leads to more productivity, but also to reducing burnout, which is also something, I'm trying to be cognizant of and helping individuals. So as you're just trying to think about what could you do in the new year, and you don't even have to wait till the new year, anything that you purchase through, anything that your patients or you purchase through us, you can use your FSA and your HSA. So if there's leftover money, talk to your patients about that. Like, this is that time. And again, they don't have to do the program in December, but if they've got leftover money there, they could use that to be able to purchase the program and then, decide to do it in January on that part.
That's a great idea. Love that. Okay. Awesome.
Thank you.
This was great. I learned so much.
Good.
Just a ton for spending time with us, Ashley. Really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you that listen live. Thank you for your questions. And those of you that are going to catch the replay, be sure to drop a comment or a question, because we will circle back around and try to get those answered for you. All right. So, and again, you can visit Ashley Koff at thebetternutritionprogram.com. And I would definitely recommend that you check this program out. In fact, I'm going to check it out myself.
Yeah. We'll get you through it. Yeah.
That's myself. So
that's right. Before you start taking away your favorite breakfast, like,
right. Or at least mix it up.
Yes, totally. Right. That's awesome. Yes.
All right.
All right, you guys. Thank you.
Take care. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.